Okay, so our study was a replication study of Srull and Wyer from 1979 at Fairfield University. And it was done by Danielle, Witty, Taylor Lewis, Maya Kapur, and Kathleen Duong. Okay.
So in the original Srull and Wyer study, they looked at the effects that priming for concepts relating to hostility had on judgments that participants made on a stimulus person. So the data presented in their study suggested that participants were more likely to judge the target person as having more hostile traits after being primed with hostility-related items. For our study, we decided to further the research done in their study and continue the procedures to test the reliability of their conclusions. So we will do this by replicating experiment 1 of their study with minor changes. Our study will be online, and our target person will be named Ronald instead of Donald to avoid any pre-existing biases that participants may have. In this study, we hypothesize that hostile priming will result in hostility-related judgments made about the personalities of the target person.
So this is the method. Participants in the original study, there were 96 psychology students at a university. Our study included a convenient sample of 66 total participants, 50 males, 10 females, and 6 participants who did not indicate their gender. The survey was converted into an online format, distributed virtually. All participants received the same scripted invitation to participate in the study. Efforts to eliminate potential random factors that could affect our data. Participants received no compensation. Their involvement in the study was anonymous. And then the materials, participants were emailed a link to a Qualtrics generated version of experiment 1 questionnaire using the original Srull and Wyer experiment. And there was a hostile prime sentence jumble randomized into an 80% hostile prime condition or a 20% hostile prime condition. They were asked to read this short story about a man named Ronald, changed from the original experiment where the man was named Donald. Participants gave their judgments on Ronald and provided their age and gender data. And this is the measures section. Judgments. Participants in both conditions made the same judgment. Independent variable was the prime condition, 80% versus 20% hostile primes. Dependent variable was ratings of Ronald. In the age, participants were asked to report their age by typing in a number. And for gender, participants were asked to report their gender by selecting male, female, or non-binary. For the design, our replication of experiment 1 of Srull and Wyer investigated the effects of priming concepts related to hostility on the judgment of a targeted person. Participants randomly assigned to either the 80% hostile prime condition or the 20% hostile prime condition. And for the procedure, in experiment 1 of the original study, participants had to select behavioral descriptions that varied in hostility and ambiguity on a 0 to 10 scale. 0 meaning it was not at all hostile, and 10 is that it was extremely hostile. Our study replicated experiment 1 of this procedure and had converted it into a 10-minute online survey that was distributed virtually. Participants were randomly placed into 2 prime conditions, a 20% hostile prime condition or an 80% hostile prime condition. The first task, the participants were presented with a series of groups of 4 words. Participants were asked to pick 3 words from each group to construct a complete sentence. For the second part, participants read an ambiguous paragraph about a man named Ronald, who in the original study was named Donald. And they made judgments about Ronald as a person based on hostile or kind descriptions. The questionnaire concluded with participants giving their age and gender.
For the results of our study, we were interested in examining the relationship. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. We were interested in examining the relationship between a hostile prime and one's judgments of a target person. Our hypothesis was that the greater availability of the concept of hostility would lead to more hostile judgments of the target person. Our study included 66 participants. 50 of the participants were females, 10 were males, and 6 participants did not indicate their gender. Of our 66 participants, 60 of them indicated their age. We had an age range of 18 to 82 years old, and the mean age for participants was 26.3. So in order to compute our dependent variable, which was the hostility rating, we combined 6 personality traits relating to hostility, which included unfriendly, dislikable, kind, considerate, thoughtful, and a few more. Then after reverse coding when appropriate, we combined the hostility ratings on hostility rated traits into a single index of hostility. For the hostility rating observed in the hostility prime condition, the mean was 7.66 and the standard deviation was 1.4. In the neutral prime condition, the mean was 7.03 and the standard deviation was 1.36. We then computed an independent samples t-test in order to compare the means of our hostility prime group and the neutral prime group's rating on the target person, Ronald. We found a marginally significant effect that was in accordance with our hypothesis. It was a T56 equals 1.73, P equals 0.09. Similar to the findings of the original Srull and Wyer experiment, we found that the mean hostility rating of the trait prime group was greater than that of the neutral condition. However, we did not observe this difference at a statistically significant level as seen in the original study, as our results were only marginally significant due to our small sample size. Here's our table that has hostility ratings as a function of priming group. And then we also have figure 1, which shows the hostility ratings for the hostile prime versus a neutral prime of Ronald.
So for the discussion, as we hypothesized, we did find the mean hostility rating of the trait prime group was greater than that of the original prime group. However, like we had said earlier, we did not find this at a statistically significant level. So this is related to some of our limitations. One of them being our smaller sample size, being that we already know sample size is positively correlated with statistical power. This can be an explanation for why we didn't find the same level of significance as the original study. Another limitation of our study was our inability to control for environmental differences and potential distractions that the participants may have been exposed to. Since our study was conducted virtually and remotely from the homes of all the participants, there could have been other factors and distractions that took place as they took the study, which may have affected their attention to the study and therefore affected the level of the effect of the prime on their judgment of the target person. As far as strengths of our study, we did only include data from participants who completely finished our study. So we were intending to code for some sort of threshold where underneath that we would exempt the participants' data from being included in our study. This meaning they didn't complete enough unscrambling tasks to have been affected by the priming. However, all of our participants completely finished the study, so this wasn't an issue. Another strength was that we closely followed the method of the original study. Being that our study was intending to replicate an original study, it was very important for us to try to follow the method and theory of the original study as closely as we could to establish reliability and to add to the body of knowledge on social cognitions. And then lastly, for strengths, our recruitment process allowed us to generate a diverse sample. All of the researchers sent out an invitation to participants to engage in our study. Related to this, our invitation was scripted, so this took away from any potential random factors that might have affected the individual's decision to participate or not. And also being that researchers all had access to different groups of individuals to potentially participate, this generated a more diverse sample than we would have seen on a college campus, where a lot of studies are often conducted that are comprised mostly of college students. So this allowed our data to be more generalizable and more representative of the population. And then the next slide is,
Sorry.
no worries.
Having some technical
Just one more slide.
So,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, thank you. Is future directions. So researchers might be interested in seeing the effects of priming other traits other than hostility. So maybe they would be interested in priming traits related to generosity or other aspects of personality, and seeing if the same effects of the priming hold true on decision making and judgment of the target person. They also may be interested in looking at alternative methods of priming. So rather than having the participants do a sentence unscrambling task, they might have them look at visuals or pictures that have components of them related to the trait intended to be primed, and then seeing how this might affect their judgment of a target person. And then in conclusion, the present study aimed at replicating the work of Srull and Wyer from 1979 to look at the effects of trait priming on judgment and decision making. While we did observe means in the direction predicted, we did not observe this at a significant level. As previously discussed, this may be due to our sample size or failure to control environmental conditions. And overall, our study yielded results that did support the original study of Srull and Wyer. However, our study still suggests need for further research on the topic.